Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. It started as a whisper. Not a sound but a shift. Subtle. Like how the air feels before a storm. Charged but calm. First it was just little things. The softness in her voice when she'd say, "Just meeting a friend for lunch." It was a tenderness I hadn't heard in a long time. One that stood out because I knew its contrast. The sharpness that had settled into her tone over the years. Her name was Julia. We'd been married for 8 years. 8 years of shared routines. Morning coffee in mismatched mugs, weekend grocery runs, whispered conversations in the dark when the world outside was still. Ours wasn't perfect, but it felt stable. We had weathered storms, stress, bills, loss, the kinds of things you assume make you stronger. So when the shift happened, I told myself it was just that. A phase. I chalked it up to work stress, to emotional fatigue. I didn't want to believe otherwise. Not until that night on the couch. Her phone buzzed beside me. I wasn't snooping, it was an instinct like glancing at a sudden noise. But what I saw stopped me cold. Can't stop thinking about today. No name. Just a number. But everything inside me recoiled. When I asked her about it, Julia laughed nervously, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear like she always did when lying. "It's just a group chat. You know how girls talk sometimes. Stupid inside jokes." I smiled and nodded. But that night, as she slept soundly beside me, I stared at the ceiling. My thoughts raced in a loop I couldn't silence. Something was wrong. Very, very wrong. Over the next few weeks, her lunches became more frequent. Her excuses grew vaguer. I watched her slip away like sand through fingers, while still pretending everything was okay. I wish I could say I confronted her then. That I stood up, demanded honesty, put an end to the torment. But I didn't. I waited. I watched. And finally I acted. That afternoon, she left her phone unattended. I don't feel proud of what I did, but I did it anyway. The messages weren't just flirtatious. They were explicit, detailed, emotional, and frequent. The man's name was Daniel, and from their texts, it was clear their so-called lunches were anything but innocent. They spoke like lovers, like teenagers drunk on each other. Worse than the physical betrayal was the emotional intimacy, the kind I thought only she and I had. For a week I carried that weight alone. A week of smiling through clenched teeth. Of making dinner, folding laundry, listening to her talk about her day like everything was normal. But inside I was unraveling. Then something inside me hardened. Not with rage, but resolve. I started investigating. Daniel wasn't just a stranger. He was a colleague, someone she had worked with on a cross-company marketing project. And he was married. I found his wife, Rachel, on Facebook. She looked kind. Soft features, tired eyes, 2 little boys in nearly every photo. My heart broke for her. But it didn't stop me. I hired a private investigator. A retired cop named Mick, the kind of guy who speaks in grunts and drinks his coffee black. Within 5 days, I had everything I needed. High-resolution photos of Julia and Daniel leaving a hotel room, holding hands in parking lots, kissing inside her car. Undeniable. Cold. Real. I sent Rachel a message. "Hi Rachel. I hate being the one to tell you this, but I believe your husband Daniel is having an affair with my wife Julia. I've attached proof. I'm truly sorry." An hour later she replied, "Thank you." I knew something was wrong. But I wasn't done. I wanted Julia to understand what she had done. To see the damage. To feel the weight of it the way I had been forced to. So I invited her to lunch. A proper sit-down lunch at home. Just the 2 of us. I set the table carefully. White linen, polished cutlery, our wedding wine glasses. She walked in smiling, cheeks still flushed from whatever lie she'd just told herself. But when she saw the envelope at her place setting, her smile froze. "What's this?" she asked. I didn't speak. Just gestured for her to sit. She opened the envelope slowly. Each photo turned her face a shade paler. Each printed message made her eyes flicker with panic. "I can explain." "Explain what?" Cut in voice low, sharp. "That you've been sneaking around with a married man. That everything we built is just a stage set for your little performance. Her tears came fast. So did the apologies. But I didn't stop. You treated our marriage like it was disposable, I said, almost whispering. I was your safety net. He was your thrill. Then I told her about Rachel. She knows. Just like I do. You didn't just break us, you broke them too. Just as the words left my mouth, there was a knock at the door. Julia's eyes widened. Open the door. Rachel stood there, composed but simmering with fury. And behind her, Daniel. Julia's mouth dropped open. What is this? She whispered. This, I said, is closure. What followed was chaos. Rachel erupted. Years of frustration spilling out in a storm of raw emotion. Daniel stammered and sputtered, trying to defend himself with tired excuses. I felt unappreciated. Unappreciated. Bark. You've got a family that adores you. And you threw it all away for what? A fling. An ego boost. Julia tried to speak, but Rachel turned on her with fire in her voice. You knew he was married. You knew. And you didn't care. By the time they left, the silence between Julia and me was suffocating. That night she packed her things. I didn't ask where she was going. The next day I filed for divorce. Rachel did the same. Daniel lost his job. His company had a strict no fraternization policy, and Rachel made sure HR saw every photo. Word spread. Friends turned their backs on Julia. Family members called in shock. She had no one left. Me. I started over. It wasn't easy. Cried. I screamed into pillows. I doubted myself. But I didn't stop moving. I went to therapy. Picked up running. I rebuilt my sense of self piece by piece. A year later, I'm in a better place. Stronger. Wiser. I've learned that love without respect is just an illusion. That boundaries matter. And that silence in the face of betrayal is not strength. It's surrender. As for Julia and Daniel, last I heard, whatever they had didn't survive the fallout. But they weren't built to last. 'Cause some things once broken should stay broken.